If you enjoy what you hear here today, please consider supporting me on my Patreon page. Every dollar helps, and you get to see content that you won't see here. Chapter 3. Visit. The Vault. The mountainside shook as a cyan blast of magic rippled down its slopes. Rocks were dislodged by the blast and skipped down the mountainside, dislocating various random groups of wildlife wandering the area. The changelings had been prepared, however, and had taken sufficient cover before the blast even occurred. Some of the changelings looked up from the outcroppings they had hid beneath as other, more advanced spellcasters disengaged their shield spells, releasing those that had been hiding beneath them. They all gazed towards the massive set of double doors carved into the mountainside, the cyan glow fading as the protective enchantment blinked out of existence. "That's another one gone," one of the changelings, a commander, informed the rest. "Begin work on the next!" The various drones flew forwards and came to a halt by the door, the spellcasters looking on to the next enchantment and beginning to unravel it. They had been at this process for quite a while now, and the release was close at hoof. As the spellcasters got to work, the guards made sure the area was secure, and once again began their watch. As they did so, the commander looked on, his gaze landing on a drone approaching from his right. "We've been at this for weeks. How much longer?" the commander asked the approaching drone, who was in fact the Queen's Archmage, in charge of overseeing the work of the others. "Only a few hours more." The commander blinked in surprise. "That's it? I didn't realize we were almost done." "The fact we are almost done is why our queen has gone to visit her friend, Queen Twilight," the mage responded. "I hear she's quite studied, deeply interested in history and other academic subjects." "I just can't believe this was here the entire time, and we never even knew," the commander stated. "How many years has our hive existed? And this thing was always here." "Well, it is quite remote," the mage noted, "and the perception filter certainly didn't help. Had that spell not failed, we may have never found it." "How old do we think this doorway is, anyway?" the commander asked. "I would place it at about 4,000 years old," the mage responded. "A little beyond our recorded history, and back into an era of myth and legends. It was possibly created during the period of the Council's founding, or even before." The commander hummed. "And the enchantments are definitely changeling-made?" The mage nodded. "Yes. Who knows? We may have found the tomb of the changeling empress." "You don't buy into that old wives' tale, do you?" the commander scoffed. "I'm keeping an open mind," the other rebuked. "We know almost nothing of this era of changeling history, and this discovery may give us an unparalleled insight into our forgotten past." The Equestrian Hive. Queen Twilight sat atop her throne, the guards standing uniformly along the carpet leading from the door up to her seat. The atmosphere was completely silent as Twilight eyed the doorway, waiting for them to open. There were no others in the throne room aside from her and the guards, but that would soon change. She knew they had already arrived. The reports had already been sent by her other guards throughout the hive mind. They had been admitted into her hive and are being escorted to the throne room at that very moment. And Twilight would not have to wait that much longer for their arrival. The two massive doors to the throne room swung open with an audible creak, coming to a rest as all eyes turned towards the vast doorway. The form of a regal changeling queen strode forth, her teal hair tied into a neat bun, and her green eyes were locked onto that of Queen Twilight Sparkle, never breaking contact, even for a second. Around her, she was accompanied by 7 changeling guards of her own, adorned in red-colored armor, though Twilight knew that more were waiting outside. The group had been led in by a couple of Twilight's own guards, recognizable by their own dark blue-colored armor, that had been worn by them ever since their own hive mind's original creation by Queen Avia 1,000 years prior. These guards bowed to their queen before taking their place with the other guards along the sides of the long purple carpet. Twilight rose from her throne, stepping forwards until she was just a little bit in front of Queen Draco, the silence deafening to all of them a few moments more.
Queen Draco?
Twilight bowed her head slightly in greeting, her voice emotionless.
Welcome to our hive. Queen Twilight?
Draco returned the gesture.
Your hive has grown much since we last met. It is good to see how far you have come since Crudelis' assault on you.
Draco looked back up at Twilight, sneering.
However, the guards and all of this...
She gestured a hoof around the throne room.
Is this how you greet a friend?
The two queens glared at each other, and the guards looked between themselves in confusion. The two royals, however, could not keep up the facade for long before breaking down into a bout of furious chuckling.
Oh, come here, you!
Twilight exclaimed, dragging Draco into a friendly embrace, which was returned gladly.
Oh, it's been too long, Draco. It has,
Draco agreed.
How have you been?
A collective sigh of relief came from every guard as the tension melted away. The two broke the embrace, Draco falling into step with Twilight as they slowly began to walk back towards the latter's throne.
Well,
Twilight answered,
aside from one pony thief in the atrium, all's been pretty quiet.
A thief?
Just a pony who thought he would try his luck. He's been sent back to Equestrian Irons,
Twilight explained.
I think he learned his lesson.
Twilight spun around and sat down into her throne, Draco turning to her still present guards and addressing them.
There is no need to stay so close to me here, where there is nothing but friends around us,
she stated to her changelings.
The journey was tiring. Find your assigned rooms for the duration of our stay and then do whatever you please. Relax.
Being released from their duties, the guards dropped their stoic demeanors and began piling out of the room, eager to put their hooves up for a little while. They all knew Queen Twilight was a close friend of Draco's, and any guard of hers would protect Draco with equal devotion. Besides, the Queen was correct. They were all exhausted.
I expect they will be heading to try out the facilities in your atrium,
Draco noted.
Especially since you've got some pony businesses there now, too?
Twilight nodded.
We have. A few businesses from Equestria set up branches here. Pony or changeling run? Changeling,
she responded.
They hired a few helping hooves from the hive. Ponies may come to visit, but they aren't quite ready to live here yet. Would you be opposed to the idea of ponies living within these walls?
Draco inquired. Twilight shook her head.
You know I'm as much a pony as I am a changeling. I feel as if I'm of both worlds, so I'm all for those worlds joining. Most other queens do not share those sentiments,
Draco stated.
Most other queens would rather stay as far from Equestria as possible. Well, isolation doesn't do anything for our species in this day and age,
Twilight argued.
Like the griffins, zebras, and other nations, we have to be more open. Allow ponies in. And our own subjects access to Equestria, too. I agree, but I don't see our changelings straying far from the hive for long. Home is where the hive mind is. True,
Twilight conceded.
But the option is there. It's all about having a choice. And we all have our own free will. That is also true,
Draco remarked.
But then again, I'm just content on the trade agreements we have with the Crystal Empire. It has been lucrative for you,
Twilight said, gesturing towards the completed stack of paperwork placed to one side, pending collection.
I've just renewed our own. I've also just renewed it. Damned paperwork is the bane of my existence.
Twilight shrugged.
It's not so bad. Of course, you actually like doing it,
Draco deadpanned.
I wouldn't quite say I enjoy it.
Draco just gave her a flat, if slightly amused, look. Twilight coughed into her hoof.
Anyway, you should see the amount of papers the princesses go through. Seeing that makes me ask myself how I ever spent 18 years without a hive mind. What? Don't think you could go back to what you were before the wedding? It would be a rough transition,
Twilight admitted, before her features grew more serious.
Leaving that for a minute, your message said you have something to tell me. Or are you just here to discuss ponies and paperwork? I suppose there will be enough time for that over the next few days. Yes, I do have a reason for coming here, but perhaps we should talk in private.
Twilight glanced towards her guards.
They can be trusted to hear whatever it is you have to say. I know, but still.
Twilight sighed.
Very well.
The queen lit up her horn. Lavender flames spread out around the two queens and began to swallow them whole. A few moments later, the flames vanished and the queens were gone. Simultaneously, identical lavender flames arose within Twilight's personal chambers, and the two queens shot up through the portal. Twilight's chambers were nearly identical to her old room back in the Badlands Hive. Bookshelves lined the walls. A table with cushions around it sat in the center, with a large bed sat against the middle of the back wall facing the doorway. To either side of the bed sat a dresser on one side and a work desk on the other.
Cozy,
Draco commented as she looked around the room, taking a seat by the table.
I've pinged some of my changelings to bring us tea,
Twilight stated.
I assume you want some? That would be nice, thank you.
Twilight joined her, sitting down at the table.
Celestia gave me a huge crate full of an exotic brew from Zebrica for my last birthday. I've yet to really crack into it, but the few cups I've had were quite nice. Zebrica? That can't have been cheap. It wasn't, apparently, but the royal vault is hardly dwindling,
Twilight said.
She's never been particularly stingy with her personal pocket, anyhow. Good for her,
Draco muttered.
I've never actually visited Zebrica. Neither have I,
Twilight stated.
The closest I've gotten is to Council Hive. Same as you, I would guess. Indeed.
The two queens didn't have to wait long. Soon enough, the doors to Twilight's chambers opened, and a cart was wheeled in by a changeling mare. She deposited the tea onto the table the queens were sat at before giving a bow towards them and leaving quickly. Once the door was shut, Draco turned to Twilight.
Now we have our beverages, perhaps we should get down to business?
Twilight took a sip from her cup.
Agreed. What is it you wanted?
Draco stared into her cup, watching the liquid within swirl slowly around the container.
We've found something.
Twilight's eyebrow raised up high.
Found something? Whatever do you mean? In the mountains near our hive, a discovery has been made,
Draco stated, taking a sip of her tea.
Oh, you are correct. This is quite good. I'm glad you like it. No, the discovery? Ah, yes, well, it's a doorway.
Twilight, her curiosity truly piqued, leaned forwards.
A doorway? You mean carved into the mountain?
Draco nodded.
Indeed. We have dated it to be about 4,000 years old, and the wards around it are changeling made.
Twilight's eyes widened.
What? A 4,000-year-old changeling ruin? Draco, do you know what this could mean?
Draco chuckled.
Oh, I thought you might be interested. Yes, this ruin could shed light on history long thought lost to time. And not just for changelings. Depending on what's within, we could learn about an entire era where the sun and moon worked by themselves, before the mother of Celestia and Luna walked this world, or even Discord was born.
Twilight shouted excitedly.
How was it hidden for so long, if it's so close to your hive? It was covered by a perception filter, Draco explained. And it is also covered in powerful wards. I suspect a highly skilled changeling queen may have been responsible.
Twilight let this information sink in, her mind swimming with possibilities. The scholar within her was squealing like an excited lavender unicorn filly she once knew.
If a queen wanted to hide it, to protect it, something of great importance must be within. Perhaps it's an old hive,
Draco suggested.
or, as my best mage has theorized, a tomb. How long will it take for you to gain access? It should be done when I return in a few days,
Draco stated.
Once I have verified the contents, I will send for you. And why can't I just return with you?
Twilight asked.
I'd likely have to cancel that meeting with Prince Blueblood, but I'm sure he'll live. We don't know what it is within this ruin. It could be dangerous.
Twilight tilted her head.
And?
Draco chuckled.
I know you can handle yourself, but as my guest, your safety would be my responsibility, my friend. I just want to be sure everything is fine before you go shoving your muzzle into every point of interest. I can see your point,
Twilight conceded.
But do try not to uncover every secret without me. I promise you, Twilight, the moment I know it's relatively safe for us to be there, I will send for you. I appreciate it,
Twilight said.
Oh, but now my mind is abuzz with possibilities. The history that ruin could contain?
Draco smiled.
You remind me of your mother. She may have mellowed out her scholarly nature over the years, but she never lost her interest. Yes, I know the story of how you met,
Twilight stated, also smiling. Draco nodded.
Well, here's to hoping you never lose that part of yourself,
she stated, raising her cup.
And to new discoveries,
Twilight added, clinking her cup against Draco's. The vault. Another blast shook the mountainside, this one colored green. Order dismissed! The mage shouted, disengaging his shield and moving up to the massive doors. His horn glowed green as he scanned it with his magic, a fang-filled smile breaking onto his muzzle. It's done, he stated. All the wards are gone. The doorway is open.